Welcome to another episode of Austin Tech Connect. This is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. My name is Thom Singer, and we have been doing this show now for over 3 years. And the idea is that we bring interesting conversations to you with people you may or may not have run into in your networking around the Austin community so that you know who to connect with and you can learn a little bit about what's going on in the world of tech here in Austin. And every single week, we try to engage with those local leaders to hear their stories of success and their advice on how you can thrive. Hey, before we get going farther on this, we've got to thank the sponsor of this episode, and that is Calavista Software. Calavista Software helps companies create software with no drama, and they have been working with Fortune 100 companies and small startups alike for decades. So thank you to Calavista for being a continuing sponsor of the Austin Technology Council and the 2026 sponsor of this podcast. So today, we are joined by Skip Balch. He is the founder and principal consultant at SalesHandicapper. Hey, Skip, welcome to the show.
Thom, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm really
following your podcast and been following ATC for a long time. Well, especially since you started.
Nice. Well, you've been a great contributor to the ATC community, so we certainly appreciate you. So for those of you who don't know Skip, and you really should know Skip, he's lived here over 13 years. He has over 5 decades of sales experience. And with his new company, SalesHandicapper, what he does is he makes sales teams better. And he does that through working on the strategy, the skills, and then training the teams on how to do those things and how to communicate better across the board. And when he's not doing all that, he likes to play with his grandkids, he likes to golf, and he's a pretty active member here in the Austin community. And thank you to SalesHandicapper because they are a sponsor of the 2026 Austin Tech Hall of Fame event, which comes up just in a couple of days. If you're listening to this when it first comes out, you probably even missed your chance, but there's probably one more day to get tickets because it's next Tuesday. So
I actually have an extra ticket available, Thom, if somebody wants to reach out to me. Nice. And been really happy to make that available.
Nice. Well, you probably have to do that the day this is released because we're going to shut that down because we're getting to capacity.
All right.
All righty. So anyway, Skip, what brought you to Austin 13 years ago?
I was living in Houston, 22 years, working for a variety of different startups, one of which was Mark Cuban's company, broadcast.com, and was approached by a friend of mine from my church who said, hey, I got a guy that's starting up a software company in Austin looking for somebody to lead sales. Would you be interested? Now, we'd lived in Houston for 22 years. My wife was well established. My daughter was already at college. My son was in his freshman year of college. And I was like, well, okay, if I'm going to take this opportunity, I better do it now, or I got to wait 3 more years until my son graduates. So I came up to lead the sales organization for a software startup.
Nice. And you've been doing this for a long time. Where did you get your start? How did Skip, let's go back to college. How did Skip start graduating college and going into the business world?
So there's an assumption that is risky to make. I did not complete college. I went for a year. And long story, different podcasts we can go through. But my first real job as sales was actually sales management. I answered an ad in the Dallas Morning News for an adventurous sales manager to lead the sales team for the only alternative long-distance telephone company in Anchorage, Alaska, called GCI. I ultimately, another really good story as to how I got the job, but I was offered the job. I flew to Alaska, never been there before. I hired 5 salespeople, none of whom had telco experience because you just didn't find that in Anchorage, Alaska. We wound up getting shut down 5 or 6 times after I first got hired because of the regulatory battle that went on between Alascom, the AT&T equivalent, and our company. Ultimately, we prevailed and we launched it. And after a year, we killed it. It was a great launch. But after a year, I determined I'm not an Alaska guy. And so I decided after a year to leave and went back to the lower 48. And then actually at that time became a stockbroker. And then the rest is history.
Nice. So throughout your whole career, you've been focused a lot on sales. What are some of the things that you've seen across the board salespeople do right, salespeople do wrong before we get to this world of AI? And we're going to dive into that.
So one of the things that probably the most important that took me the longest to learn is that oftentimes, because when I grew up and it was in sales, it was all about how to close. J. Douglas Edwards, Cavett Roberts, Zig Ziglar, you close and so forth. And you never want to answer a question with a question. Well, in fact, that's wrong. I learned in my study of the Bible, Jesus Christ was asked 168 direct questions. He only answered 6 of them directly. The other times, he answered all of them with simply a better question. And so that really began to change how I went into sales conversations, discovery calls, and so forth. So I think sales are not lost at the end; they're lost at the beginning. And I think that if you are not establishing the expectations, they're being established for you. Most dangerous word in the history of the English language is expectations, because there's nothing that we see or do or hear or feel or touch or say that doesn't have an expectation associated with it. Guess what? That's the same thing for our prospects. So if you aren't setting the expectation, the reason that expectations becomes dangerous is that most of them, 90+% of them, go unspoken. And so what happens is if you're not setting the expectation, it's being set for you. You're just not being told what it is. And so that's why you have to really get good at questioning what's going on, validating, qualifying. To me, qualification is not a stage in the sales process. It is the sales process, because time kills all deals. And as time continues on, a lot of things can happen. People can change, decision makers change, the circumstances change. You've always got to be validating. Are we still on track? Is the goal still to find a solution to your problem? And I think if salespeople just remember that, answer really good questions with better questions, you're going to find out what's really going on, and also to continue qualifying. And I think the third one is, and this is a rule that I still break all the time, but much less than I used to. And that is, most salespeople listen to respond. They don't listen to learn. And the challenge is, when you listen to respond, you all of a sudden, after that first reply that they have, you now coming up with a response. That voice is already going on in your head, which means that if that voice is going on in your head, you're not hearing the voice that's speaking to you. And most of the time, what somebody says, the third sentence or the fourth sentence, is really what they want to be, what they are really most concerned about. But you didn't hear it because you were already formulating the response to the first thing they said. Listen to learn, don't listen to respond. And I'm going to tell you right now, the greatest invention in the history of sales is the AI sales assistant. I suck at taking notes. Not only do I suck at it, but if I'm doing that, if I'm having to take a note about something you just said, I've just missed the thing you just said. It's like listening to a Robin Williams monologue, right? You're so busy laughing at the first thing that he said that he's so fast with the second and third thing, you missed it. And you're asking your buddy, what did he just say? Why is everybody still laughing, right? So I think that if you listen to learn, and what AI sales assistants do, and I use Sybil.ai, I don't mind saying it, I don't get anything from it, is I don't have to take notes anymore. It does it for me, and I can be completely and totally engaged in the conversation. Game changer for me. I could not do what I'm doing now at 68. I couldn't do this without an AI sales assistant.
So that's fascinating, but I want to go back to a couple things you said, and I love this: listen to learn, not listen to respond. And I think it's not just true with salespeople; it's true with everybody. Everybody, when someone else is talking, they think, when can I break in to say what I want to say? And I'm a talker, so this is a lesson that I've had to learn the hard way. Is to just take a beat and listen to what people are saying, and certainly in the sales world, that's important. And the other thing you said is, if you don't set the expectation, it's going to be set for you. And I think that, that for salespeople is probably the number one lesson that takes a while to learn, is that, there's always going to be an expectation. And if you take control of it, and keep that moving, that's a good thing. So why do salespeople struggle with that?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I can tell you personally why I struggle with it, because, I think that, so, the thing I struggle with is I am not the smartest guy in the room. Right. And so I don't struggle anymore. I don't struggle with expectations. I struggle with listening to learn versus listening to respond. With expectations, I think is you want to get right to it. Most salespeople just want to get right to it. And what they're not recognizing is, get to what? So my first conversation in a discovery call, my sale that I want to get to is to earn the right for the second call. I'm not trying to sell my product. I'm not trying to go into a bunch of details. And so I set up the expectation It's all part of what I call outcome-based agendas. Everything has to have an outcome. So I'll set it up. Hey, the expectation that I'm looking for is to earn the right to have a second conversation that maybe goes into more detail. Is that acceptable to you? Yeah, that's a good outcome. Okay, now the expectation's been set for the purpose of the conversation. It is amazing the impact that has on the conversation.
Nice. So let's talk about your new company, SalesHandicapper, and sort of why you call it SalesHandicapper. Let's start there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the question. Back a long time ago, I was working for another startup. And by the way, after you, I think everybody can appreciate this. It's been to work for startups. If you get that one that you actually hit a home run on, right? And I did with broadcast.com. Thank you, Mark Cuban and Todd Wagner. Shout out to Mark Cuban and Todd Wagner. Then you get it in your blood and you keep chasing. And that's what I did. Some exited great, some exited not so much. But when I was looking for exiting one that wasn't going to happen so much, I actually started a blog called SalesHandicapper. And it was about improving your odds of winning. That's what a handicapper does, right? They improve your odds of winning. It wasn't about golf. It was about gambling at the time, but I guess it could be about golf as well. And so I began to do that. And I was writing things, and I wrote prolifically for a while, and then I stopped. Some of the posts that I have now on LinkedIn are simply regurgitations of posts that I wrote 15, 16, 17 years ago. Amazing how they still apply today, right? It's like an old Law and Order episode. It was shot 20 years ago, but the issues are still relevant today. So I decided after I left Growth Acceleration Partners, 8 great years with a company here in Austin that did nearshore software development. I decided, you know what, there's a lot that I want to do and a lot that I want to still say. And I'm not getting any younger. So I retired from there and decided to commercialize SalesHandicapper. And honestly, the first several months, it was like, okay, so what does that mean, right? What is it that you really want to do? And I'm not looking to build a company, candidly. I'm not looking to scale this thing to 15 consultants or whatever. No, I'm looking to give back and to provide guidance and to provide insights of almost 5 decades of selling and sales leadership that somebody can appreciate. And so when you net it out, it is I do strategy, skills, and speaking. Strategy, I help companies with their strategies, sales strategies, both the good and the bad. Skills, what are the skills that your team needs? And then what is the speaking? It's speaking, whether it be training, whether it just be motivational speaking, whether it be on a particular topic. Because now what's happening is that with the advent of my new book coming out, if I could go ahead and make a plug called Everybody Sells, to your point, everybody's selling. It's got a bad rep in the very, very beginning of time. But aside from that, everybody really sells. And so now I'm beginning to speak in front of HR departments, in front of engineering departments about the fact that if you got an idea that you want to share, that you want to sell, that you're selling. Now, how do you do it better? How do you improve on it? So that's what SalesHandicapper is now.
Nice. Well, I've been around a long time, 4 decades in the business world. A lot of that was in sales. And one of the things that has always surprised me is how every new generation of company and every new generation of worker still struggles with sales skills. At the end of the day, tech companies, they constantly are churning through, they're hiring up all these people they think are going to change their world, and they don't make quota, and then they let them go. They hire a new sales manager and they go back and sort of do it again. So what makes you different than all the sales consultants that are out there? Because, there's so much sales training that's existed for 60 years or more. What makes you different?
Well, a lot of the sales training is really very good. It's really not bad. It's just a methodology that you use, and it's a system in order to be able to scale. I think what makes me different is that I look at not just the sales side of it, and how do you convert your pipeline? How do you convert more leads into more conversations, into more sales, and into the pipeline? But I also focus an awful lot on the accountability side. So I think what makes me different is that I bridge the gap between the salesperson and the sales manager, and more importantly, what's above the sales manager, right? The head of the company, CEO, the CRO, whatever it is that it may be. And I think that there are a lot of really good sales methodologies that are out there. In fact, I ran what I do against 15 of them in ChatGPT, and I said, be honest with me. Right. I have a virtual board of directors in ChatGPT. And I said, be honest with me. Is what I'm doing anything different? And almost all of them said the only real differentiator is your focus on accountability and pipeline management and forecast management, as opposed to just what's going on with the skill set. I qualify to disqualify. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago in sales management is that the longer the explanation, the bigger the lie. If a salesperson could not, in brief, say why this is moving forward, why that forecast date of close of May 30th is still legitimate, even when they haven't even gone into legal yet, right, or something like that. If you can defend that succinctly, then we can keep it there. If not, then it goes out, it gets pushed out. Okay, so I think that what makes me different is I say the hard things. Mm-hmm. I'm not concerned with speaking truth to power. The truth is what the truth is, and if that works, and that's great, and if not, then there are thousands of other options out there.
So one of the things you said earlier was that, sort of one of the greatest inventions for sales was sort of the AI note taker. Mm-hmm. What is significantly different from the pre-AI days into our now current AI days when it comes to sales? I mean, obviously there's the ability to take all the notes so that you can just sit there and listen because you can go back and have all the notes. But what else? What is significantly different in this era?
Well, what's different is the ability to prep almost immediately. Give me a name, give me a LinkedIn profile, give me a website URL, and I can prep what used to take maybe an hour, hour and a half if I really didn't get interrupted. Now takes 15 seconds or 20 seconds. Okay. Here's the difference, though. The element, and I believe this for a long time, really, even ever since the internet, and I've been around since the fax machine, dude. So I've been doing this a long time, right? But ever since the internet, I think there's been a significant assault on the skill set of discernment. When information is free, when information is vast, when information is 24/7, it is your ability or your capability to get information is not the issue. The issue is, how do I discern what's relevant and what's not? And that's what I believe is the role of management today. Sales management, which is considered, a lot of organizations are going flat. They go right up to the CRO and so on and so forth. But you know what? You're basically transferring the element of discernment, which is where most salespeople wind up learning more than anything else. What's relevant, what's not, and then how do I apply our value proposition, or more specifically, our unique value proposition? How do I apply that to the situation that I'm addressing at that particular point in time? These are all human. I heard it at the Foundation for Better Business did a Ignite Summit this last week, and one of the guys was presenters was a consultant on AI. He was brilliant. Ayal is his name, and he was brilliant. And he actually took the term "human in the loop" and he made it "human in the lead." Human in the lead. I thought, wow. What a tremendous difference behind the distinction. And so I think that's what's really changed. There's a lot of really good tools that are out there right now, but I think we're still trying to learn how to optimize those tools most effectively. So the biggest change is the tools, but then it's also, it requires a lot more discernment and discipline on management to optimize them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's so many parts of business that we still need to have that sort of human instinct, that gut feeling. Everybody talks about all these jobs that are going to be disrupted, but at the end of the day, an LLM is just pattern recognition. Sometimes there's that piece of looking at the pattern, saying yes, but, and I think that is something that we probably forget. I don't think that we're going to have AI agents contacting AI agents to sell products and services. I think there still has to be people on both sides.
There's not going to be a CEO or a CFO that's going to approve a purchase from an agent selling to an agent. It's just not going to happen, right? I can't fire the agent.
So there is a lot of talk about who's going to be disrupted in this world. So let's take it into the sales loop. Who do you think's at risk when it comes to the AI world?
I think anybody that doesn't adopt AI is at risk. AI is not going to replace you. Your unwillingness to adopt AI and to optimize AI is going to replace you. And so I think that anybody that is saying, "Oh, no, I'm a relationship person." Well, so am I. Okay. But if I can learn of something about somebody that makes me more relatable, and I can do that in a matter of 15 seconds, and I can employ that in a real conversation that I'm having with somebody, then why isn't that better? So I think that denial is, the old joke, denial is not a river in Egypt, right? Denial of the impact of the seismic transformative impact of AI is the single biggest threat to the sales organization. And I mean, I talked to a sales leader the other day who I asked him, tell me how AI is impacting your sales organization. I'm not kidding you, Tom. After 5 minutes, what I determined was it isn't. And because he doesn't know how to do it. Yeah, then I talked on a podcast. I talked with a CRO who actually built his own SalesHandicapper, if you will, and showed it to us. It's on the podcast. Showed it to us. Brilliant. And I'm sitting there going, there's the future of your sales management. It's the ability to optimize the tools. So I think that it's denial is just going to be your ticket out.
So there's a lot of tech companies in Austin, both ones that are homegrown and small and larger, and then a lot of them that have opened up different offices here and have salespeople here. What are the mistakes? Where are the holes when it comes to tech sales right now?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to give you the lawyer response, and that is it depends, right? I think that there are still a lot of tech companies, especially those that have just started off, that are operating with a founder that has the field of dreams syndrome. If we build it, they will come. Early on, nobody sells the product better than the founder because nobody is innately familiar with the problem that the founder originally determined that they were trying to solve. So then the question becomes, is it really a cure looking for a disease? Mm-hmm. Is it a business, or is it a product, or is it a feature? And if they're not willing to allow themselves, before they try to go get VC funding, but just somebody that's willing to speak truth into them and says, I still don't see it. I still see how you can build it. And I think that's really cool. What I don't know that I necessarily see is that there's a market for it, or that there is a problem where maybe, and I sold a lot of products where I had to sell the paradigm first, i.e. you have this problem, you didn't know it yet, but you do have this problem, where this problem is coming. Now I'm going to sell you why our product is the best one, right? So at the very least, you have to first establish, as you're a tech company, you've got to get agreement, not acquiescence, not like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and not argue with you, but you've got to get enrollment that the problem that you're trying to solve is something that they want solved, that they need solved. And basically, that's where the qualify to disqualify comes in. If you cannot convince them that they have a problem that needs to be solved and that it's important for them to solve it, then there's nothing to talk about relative to your product and your solution. So I think a lot of companies are still in that. I think this is really cool. The founder made a few sales initially to friends and family, if you will. But what they realize is that the innovator sale is not the scalable sale, right? And so they confuse early sales wins with scalable opportunity. And I think, again, they just need somebody that they trust, and trust is never having to question the motive or the competence of the other person, not one or the other, but both. They need somebody that they can trust, that can come in and go, interesting, but I'm not sure I see it as scalable, and work through it. Have the hard discussion, because out of that hard discussion, if it's real, there's your sales pitch. Mm-hmm. If it's not, move on to something else.
Nice. So you've lived in Austin for quite a while, and in the time you've lived here, Austin has gone through massive transformation. So where do you think as a tech community we are today, and where do you think we're going in the future, and what are we doing right, and maybe what should we be paying more attention to?
Well, if I knew what we were doing right, I'd just flat retire because I could afford to. I think that the tech community thrives on unique talent. And so I think that one of the things that Austin is doing well is it's still attracting really good talent. Okay. I think that it is attracting, now at least what I'm seeing is it's attracting second and third time founders, and not just first time founders, which I think is extremely important. Right. I think that there's a lot of, but I think on the flip side is that there's a lot of arrogance around 3X founder, three-time founder exit, or 5-time exit. Come on. I could say 10-time exit on mine, and not all of them, and none of them is anything other than broadcast.com. Right. So I think that there's some arrogance a little bit still, or developing within Austin. But by the same token, I've talked to some founders, some tech founders, that I'm thinking to myself, boy, if I were in my 20s or 30s, would I want to go to work for that person? The answer is absolutely yes. There's integrity that is there and so forth. So all the same challenges that have always existed always exist, right? Is this somebody that's really, that's really has a lot of integrity, that there's a real problem to solve? One of the things that I discovered a long time ago is what I call the original lie. The original lie is the lie that the founder had to tell investors in order to get money to be able to launch the company. And the reason that it was a lie, because it may have been by omission or commission, there was no way in hell that they were going to reach their initial revenue targets. There was just no way. There was just none. Okay. And as having worked for companies that did that, I know, it was never going to fly. Right. So I think that I think it's very vibrant. It's funny. You hear about the layoffs, Google laying off, Oracle laying off. And so you hear about it's a headline, but then you don't really hear about it anymore. So I think that there's still quite a bit of the market that can be absorbed by new startups. And then obviously we have an environment and a climate, a business climate that a lot of companies are moving into. So I think there's a lot of good things. Macro wise, I think there's a lot of good things. Micro wise, there's still some challenges that exist in every startup environment. But
you are right with the layoffs that have happened and stuff like that. Our unemployment is still lower than the state average and lower than the national average. And while I do get calls from people who are out there looking, they're not as much as you would think. So I think that there's still opportunities, and there's that entrepreneurial spirit. A lot of people take their package and say I'm going to go do my thing, whatever that looks like. And Austin's a place that gives you the runway to do that.
Well, and with COVID changed everything. Because what COVID meant is work no longer became where you go and who sees it. It became what you do and what you get done. Mm-hmm. And so the advent of remote work, I can hire somebody. I'm based here in Austin, but they're in Omaha, Nebraska. As long as I can connect with them and they come in every now and then. These I'm not sure exactly. Some of these companies that are being very dogmatic about you got to work from here, unless they're doing it literally as just a tactic to be able to get people to quit so they don't have to pay severance. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But there are a ton of companies that are hybrid at the very least that are doing really, really well. And it's because their focus is on the right talent, not on proximity.
Nice. Well, Skip, thank you for being a guest here on Austin Tech Connect. And thank you to SalesHandicapper for being a sponsor of the Austin Tech Hall of Fame. I talk about sponsors not just for ATC events, but for all of the business nonprofits around town, that they're true community champions. Because when you look at all the organizations that do so much for this tech community, if it wasn't for companies who were willing to say, we believe in what you're doing, we'll sponsor this event, none of these events would be able to take place. And so thank you for being a true community champion. Any final words?
No, I just keep doing what you're doing, Tom. Sometimes I know it feels like you're pushing a boulder up the hill, and so forth. But, we're still nascent relative to the coast. And I think that what you're doing is really, really important, even though if a lot of times it doesn't necessarily show up as spectacularly. But thank you for doing what you're doing.
Well, I believe that Austin still has to be a scrappy tech community. We have not reached the top of the mountain. We're halfway up that mountain. And if we forget that, then other people will be charging up the mountain right alongside us. So Austin, I don't think Austin should look down on other companies, but I think that other communities, but I think that we should be a leader. I think Austin should say, this is what you do in the early stages of a growing tech ecosystem. And we certainly did that. We are the poster child of cities of what to do in the early days. But I also think that we need to embrace the idea that, when you're in the middle, when you're halfway up the mountain, here's how you do it to keep going. And I think that we need to be leaders, not just in Austin, not just in Texas, but I think the United States and the world by how we act as a scrappy, connected community. And I'll say that as long as anybody will listen.
Totally agree.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. We try every week to have an episode here with somebody where we're going to give you a little information, expose you to somebody you may or may not know in the community. We call it Austin Tech Connect for a reason. Thank you for tuning in. And please tune in next week and do me a favor. Our listenership is growing. A friend of mine was on AI looking for the podcast to listen to in the Austin Tech community. And his AI told him it was Austin Tech Connect. So I can't say we're the best, but ask ChatGPT and see what they say. We'll be back next week with somebody right here to share their story on Austin Tech Connect.